A father's presence by work in the home. I'm going to start with a quotation from Wendell Berry's The Unsettling of America. This is the chapter. It's called The Body and the Earth. I find this very powerful. As the connections have been broken by the fragmentation and isolation of work, they can be restored by restoring the wholeness of work. There is work that is isolating, harsh, destructive, specialized, or trivialized into meaninglessness. And there is work that is restorative, convivial, dignified, and dignifying, and pleasing. Good work, but the enactment of connections. It is living and a way of living. It's not support for a family in the sense of an exterior brace or prop, but is one of the forms and acts of love. There's a lot going on in there we won't be able to consider. Good work, what it is, its key role in the household is a vital and broad topic. The focus of my brief presentation is how good work is a uniquely powerful way a father can be present in the home. So here's my plan. I'm going to enunciate two principles that I'm taking for granted and really form the background for then a very concrete suggestion I have for how we fathers can be more present in our homes by good work. First principle. For every married man with children, his fatherhood in the home is the central daily context for the exercise of his manhood. We step back and recognize a quick distinction. There's a very, very important nuance here. Fatherhood is not simply measured by how the children turn out. One can be exercising fatherhood very well and have still, as it were, diverse results in how children receive and respond and how in their free choices they determine how they're going, dare I say. We need to simply keep striving, starting again, to be a better father, wherever we are, whatever we've done. We're concerned with how we're doing because we're concerned for them. We need to remember, even the best of fathers can have prodigal. In the home, I mean how a father invests himself, especially in a bodily way, lovingly and unselfishly, in both the community of the household as a whole and in each relationship with individual persons in the household. Such presence is intentional, bodily whenever possible, and regular. But many of us men struggle to find the context, the ways to be present in our home with our wife and our children. We often find ourselves wondering, what do we actually do? Right? How do we enact the good intention, the desire, the love that we have to be there with and for our wife, our children? Especially given how limited our time is, it can be very stressful for us, but be present in the home. Quick note, let's have mercy on ourselves. We as a society have largely lost the communal structures, the practices, the habits that provide the normal, natural contexts for presence. It was perhaps a central instance of this that Wendell Berry in the daily life of the household. It left the context, and thus the household itself became much less of an economic unit, became much less productive, and now a man's work, and likewise too, following that, a woman's work, more and more was separated from the daily life. Find the context and the ways to be present is is somewhat given already by the situation in which we find ourselves. So that should be a reason for having a certain mercy on ourselves. And let's not indulge in bemoaning this. Oh, gosh, we're in such a horrible situation. We have to live in the situation in which we are. But let's begin by being aware of that particular challenge and address it. So, what are we going to do? First step, we need to put a priority on spending quality time in the home. Now, obviously, there'll be a certain amount of time that we are in the home where we need to be attending to things that make it be such that that time isn't going to be what we would point to as, yeah, well, that's really the quality time that we're there. Given that from about their presence in the home, and try to seek those windows and those ways of having that especially richer time of actually being there. So what do we do then more specifically? Find and choose good work, often apart from our main profession. I'm not going to be able to address here a very rich and important topic. What might we do to perhaps try to find a profession or make it more possible for more men to have professions that have this richer connection with the household? I'm going to take as a given that most of us are not really in a position to be able to do that. In other words, that many of us, probably most of us, are going to have a profession that is simply remote from the household, the main work in which is going to be very difficult to unite to, connect to relate to the daily life in the household, other than by, as Barry said, it's how we support what's going on, of having a very quality time. It's kind of the answer to the question, what should we do? I'm not saying it's the only answer. There's other ways, of course, we're going to have to be present in quality time. But a very significant one that is often underlooked is this one. So what are a few features to look for in looking for work that we might choose to be intentional about and enact in our household as a way of being more present there? A few things to consider. The work should have a clear connection to the real needs of people in the home. I'm going to just tick through a few of these things and not give an example of each, but then afterwards just give a few examples I'm going to suggest that we consider choosing from among. Not that there won't be other good examples too that I won't mention. So again, the work should have a clear connection to the real needs of people in the home. It should have obvious, tangible fruits. It should call for and reward creativity. It should engage mind and body. Ideally, engage mind and body with the natural world in some way. Try to use tools that enhance rather than block our engagement with the object of the work. Let me now give a few examples from which we might choose. Food production, gardening, animal husbandry, hunting and fishing. That little trio right there is actually from Aristotle. He saw each of those as the three kind of works that are natural to a household, because just looking at the world around us, these are the ways that we need to attend to basic needs of our bodies, ourselves being a kind of animal. So, again, what were those three? Growing things, which I'm here calling gardening, growing food, animal husbandry, husbanding animals for the sake of particularly food, but other human purposes. Tradition, such a richness to it. Food preserving, which can overlap in very rich ways with the food preparation. Woodworking or carving, stone or metalworking. Maybe that takes the form of blacksmithing. Other trades, such as plumbing or electrical work. Final example I'm going to throw out It's very specific, but I think it has a certain unique place and power. Heating the home. I love the old expression, wood heats you 3 times. When you harvest it, when you split it, and then when you burn it. That's one of my favorites. It's such a simple thing, but it's such a work that appeals to something so deep within us, and highlights so many of the features that we would look for in good work. So thinking back over those few examples I gave, I'd say when possible, use hand tools that are non-motorized. Why? Tends to make that work be more connective, more powerful in connecting us with other people, connecting us. Times we'll use high-tech tools as a way of enabling us to have maybe just that one other aspect of our work be able to have that more natural aspect to it using the hand tools. Quick example, in the splitting of wood, in order to do the lead-in work, did I not use the chainsaw, then I would not be set up as I am to be able to then go back to such a great hand tool in the great splitting maul, the axe, to then be able to have that rich work. It's the splitting is particularly the work I'm intentional about trying to share with my family and form my children in doing with me. The chainsaw enables that. Point here is not about the kind of the purity test of what has to be without certain kinds of tools. This is we're being very pragmatic here, very practical in trying to set up a situation of finding maybe it's just that one work. Those 2 works that we find are the ones that will work in our context, whatever the context of our household, be it rural, suburban, intentional about making it a vehicle of presence. When I say that, I mean, essentially, we might want to be asking ourselves regularly, how are the other members of my household experiencing this work? Am I succeeding in being present to, with, and for them in this work? If it turns out I just often am getting frustrated and getting angry, and then maybe this isn't the right one to do. We're in a funny situation. In the old days, there wouldn't have been the freedom to kind of, well, which one of these works might I do? Well, we're not in the old days. That was a very different context. Where we are, it so happens that given that the work I'm talking about seeking out here is not the one that isn't working. That's certainly been my own experience. I tried this one, tried that one. Yeah, that thought it might work well. It didn't. Don't have time for that anymore. So we're gonna do this instead. Of living together in love. Conclusion. The wise direct us to find fitting, commensurately human, concrete means of incarnating our good intent seed in a daily, in our household, with, again, the quotation with which I started. As the connections have been broken by the fragmentation and isolation of work, they can be restored by restoring the wholeness of work. There is work that is isolating, harsh, destructive, specialized, or trivialized into meaninglessness. And there's work that is restorative, convivial, the enactment of connections. It is living and a way of living. It is not support for a family in the sense of an exterior brace or prop, but is one of the forms and acts of love. Thanks for taking a few minutes with me.